Well, I was open this morning. The moments, scattered moments, is what Lynn suggested to me that I used the other day when I was recording. That symbolizing what I do is scatter stuff all around and have to go back and pick it up. Very seldom I do that though. Anyway, I've had this memoir from Leon for a good while. I was saving it because here's what he sent it to me under the title of Memoirs. And he says, Leon says, I haven't received any of your memoirs except the first two. I like the way you read your memoirs, so I jotted down a few lines you might edit and read. So I'm going to read this and maybe add a comment, not too many, I hope. And he got it in docs, so I'll open the docs now and go from here. All right, the first entry is Memoirs, and it's titled Uncle Clyde Series. Waco to Austin is the title, that one of Uncle Clyde's favorite songs to sing. I remember when Uncle Clyde came to visit, he would grab Jack Silvertone and play mostly in the key of C, or C, F, and G, and sing. He could sing pretty well, I thought. One of his greatest, in my opinion, was Red River Valley. By the way, that was what Ma would tell me to play all the time. Jack, play Red River Valley, and I'd say, Ma, I just got through doing it, but I'd go ahead and sing it again. This back to what Uncle Leon said Uncle Clyde did, or said, and both. One day he remembered a song called Bus from Waco to Austin, which he began to sing. About the first line, he was interrupted by Daddy. And Daddy said, No, Clyde, it was a Baylor bus, in which they got into an argument. It seems every time Uncle Clyde came, he would grab Jack's guitar and sing Waco to Austin, just to irritate Daddy. From that time on, if Jack or I would make a mistake singing or anything else, the other party would always say, No, Clyde, that was expression we'd use. The next part is wire recorder, and that was something Uncle Clyde. Uncle Clyde bought a wire recorder, and he spent most of his time with it untangling the wire because it was bad about backlashing. For some reason, one time he left it at our house in Sibley, and we were having a blast with it. One day we were out of school, and Jack Donald Tharp and a bunch of other kids were in his car, and I said, Hey, why don't we go over to my house and record something on Uncle Clyde's tape recorder, or a wire recorder? And everybody was for it. I got it out and started it up, grabbed Jack Silvertone, and Jack began to sing, You're Cheating Heart. I remember he didn't know the tune, and he broke his voice on every other word. I think Hank Williams broke his. I think Hank Williams broke his voice maybe 2 or 3 times a song. He gave me the mic and said that was all he knew, and I hit the stop button and it backlashed. I said to everybody, I can fix this so we can listen to Jack's recording. And I began to work on untangling. About 30 minutes later, with no luck on my part, everybody got up and left. When Clyde came to pick it up, he wasn't too happy to see that backlash and that wire all over the place, wrapped around legs and everything. Now, the next topic is a character out of the past, Geis McGinty. Just a little note I'll add in here that Leon gave me permission to amend it or just add to it. So Geis McGinty was an old man from Sibley that had drive real slow, maybe 15 or 20 miles an hour, very slow. Anyway, we were all in Uncle Clyde's car going over to First Chance, or Last Chance, according to whether you were coming or going, to get a beer, and we came upon Geis McGinty driving his old T-model about 5 miles per hour. Leon gives the correct mileage. Uncle Clyde eased up and caught his back bumper and started pushing him. And as I watched the speedometer, he got us all up to 50 miles per hour and let him go. I was sitting in the middle watching, and after he let him go, he looked at me and laughed, not saying a word. I don't know about Geist, but I was sure glad when he let him go. Okay, now here's one of the stories that I well remember in DeBerry, and we were over there, and it's called No Goal in the Backyard. We went over to DeBerry, Texas, to visit Uncle Clyde, and all of us kids wanted to go over to Elysian Field High School to play in the gym. Ronald said, "I'll go get the keys from Daddy." He came back and said disgustedly, "Shoot, Daddy said to go out in the backyard and play." And then he commented about Uncle Clyde. He said, "Daddy ain't got a lick of sense. There ain't even no goal out there." One of those. We laughed about that a lot because Squawky told his daddy, said, "Daddy ain't got a lick of sense. There ain't no goal out there." Now the next one is entitled "Valve Job," like doing a valve with little suction cups on the. You get a motor and you'd pull up the valves, and stick them on the suction cup and twist them back and forth and grind them down. So Jack bought a 1946 Plymouth maroon coupe from James Hunter, which James had rebuilt after it had been wrecked. And it was beautiful, I thought, and I longed for it day and night. I think Jack paid $400 for it and drove it several years. When he bought another car, he sold it to me for $100, and I drove it with great love. One day I was over in DeBerry, Texas, and my Uncle Clyde took it for a drive and decided it needed a valve job. So we went to the parts store in Greenwood, and we got everything we needed for a valve job. We went over to his house in DeBerry, and he disassembled the engine, and he put me to work grinding the valves, which meant putting valve grinding compound, which looked like grease with grit in it, on the sides of the valves and sticking them into the valve openings and using a wooden stick with a suction cup on the end of the valve. On the end of the stick. I ground the valves. I think I got blisters on my palms, but I thought it would be worth it to have a valve job. Well, Uncle Clyde reassembled the engine. He didn't have any parts left over. No, I threw that in. And we cranked it up, and it ran! Exclamation point. We took it for a fan, and it seemed to be fine. I drove it back to Sibley with no problem. Of course, I couldn't tell any difference in the way it ran. I went to work after I finished college and gave the car to Sam, who drove it in New Orleans while in med school. I was working at Boeing in Wichita, Kansas, and they sent me to New Orleans where they had a contract with NASA. Sam was still driving it, and the salt water from the South Louisiana roads ate the floorboards out so you could see the road as you drove, looking down at the floorboard. He loaned it to a fellow med student with a family who drove it from New Orleans to San Antonio with ball tires with no problem. After I went to work for IT&T in Shreveport, who had a contract with the Air Force, no one wanted it, so I drove it back to Sibley and gave it to Daddy. He swapped it for a pickup. Would that little car have done what it had done had Uncle Clyde not done that valve job? Is it still in circulation as an antique car? I call it the Mayflower, and only my closest friends know why. Good job there, Super Uncle. I haven't really read this all the way through before giving it a shot. Well, I guess that's maybe all of it. And let's see how much time I've got here run off on my timer that I'm recording this on. So I guess I'll close here on this first edition of what I'm calling Scattered Moments. Actually, I think about scattered memories from the corners of my mind. But by Barbara Streisand. One of the beautiful songs I like there. But I call this type, I mean, this name, the new name for my memoirs. Of course, they're still from the Papa's Journal that Lynn brought me the journal. And so I'm still using this. And today I'm reading this off of the computer that Super Uncle sent me, but of his memoir additions to, and I enjoyed him doing that. So I'll just go ahead and close this and maybe try to send it, as I'm having difficulty sending this the past few days, trying to get a recording session working again, going through videos and several things. And it was working pretty good when I started this out of recording my written memoirs. So I read them out of my journal. But the reason I do that is that I don't get too many scattered moments and just go off with something without if I just record it by itself without reading it off. It keeps me sort of on target. Okay, well, I'm going to go and check this out and see if I have anything recorded.